What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla and a couple of other tickers, talk about what the news is saying about the markets, what you should be watching for tomorrow as we have more economic data coming out. But before I do anything like this, though, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. It ends in just about 9 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with Tesla and the market. So when it comes to Tesla, we got a very, very nice looking pump today. And this was kind of ironic because many of us were looking at the technicals and seeing something very different. But Tesla started pumping and it ended up invalidating a lot of sell signals and starting to show lots of very nice strength. And sometimes in the markets, things like this could happen amidst some good news, as Tesla announced that their Chinese sales went up by over 9% year over year just for the month of August. So good news for them. When we look at Tesla, one thing that's worth mentioning about this trend is now we could say that Tesla so far has been making higher highs and higher lows and is continuing to hold up. There's one thing that does concern me, about Tesla so far though, and that is when you look at Apple and the overall market, the market is slowing down just a little bit if you look at how SPY is trading, not to mention the NASDAQ. But Apple right now could be dictating something much bigger to develop for Tesla and beyond. And that's why I'm going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But first, I want to talk about the data that's affecting the market and some other things. Tomorrow morning, okay, we have some more big data coming out. We have the exports and imports data, not to mention Collins from the Fed giving a speech. And then 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the S&P Global Services PMI reports. And then 30 minutes after open, or at about like 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, we have the ISM services data and more important data that's going to cause some volatility. At 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern time, we have two Fed speakers coming out. So more Fed speakers are going to be coming out for tomorrow. And the biggest pieces of data coming out are going to be 15 minutes and 30 minutes after open once again. Now, when it comes to the market, I just want to mention that we ended up seeing some downside for the Dow, not to mention futures. They have changed just a little bit as we're starting to see the market just cool off a bit in a very healthy manner. But the question is, will the market continue this way? And I will talk about that in just a few minutes. Tesla's deliveries rose 9.3% year over year for the month of August, which is not bad for Tesla. And they did over 84,000 deliveries from the Chinese made EVs, which is very, very good news for them. Now, what else is very important and worth noting is that the volume was 129 million, well above the average volume, which is good news for them. And on top of that, you could see that the short volume has been dropping once again, which is a good sign for Tesla. Now, other analysts are saying sell Tesla, sell Tesla. Well, it's not really working because Tesla's continuing to be bought up. And the price price ratio is still holding this level. Instead of like declining, coming down, it's holding, which shows that Tesla has relative strength. Now, on Wednesdays, Tesla tends to be green about 48% of the time. Wednesdays tend to not be the strongest of days, but Tesla still has momentum remaining, in my opinion. And despite that, things are not looking too bad whatsoever. So now let's talk about what the charts are suggesting. Well, like I said earlier, Tesla's on an uptrend. You guys can see it's been making higher highs and higher lows. And to me, it looks like Tesla's going to be trying to touch this like 255 area. It's currently testing it, and it's going to try to bounce off of it once again. Tesla had almost no downside today, just continuing to push and push and push. And it looks like this 255 to 260 area is going to be a very important channel. As you can see, Tesla had a lot of chop in this zone. So it looks to me like Tesla's going to try to push it for 260. It may chop around a little bit, but overall, there could be a little bit more upside coming. We might see some sideways price action too. So very nice to witness on Tesla. If you look at the MACD starting to curl, looking quite nice. But there is one thing that I want to note about the market moving forward. So on Apple, okay, even though Apple is a little bit more bullish overall from just like the technicals for the short term, it is trying to push up. It made a new high today, trying to fill that gap at 190. Here's the problem. We have a bearish divergence developing on the 4-hour time frame, and on the 30 minutes time frame, we have a quadruple bearish divergence, which is suggesting that Apple is going to get a rug pull very soon. Now, does that rug pull have to happen this week? Not a guarantee, but it is a possibility, and Apple is getting tighter when it comes to its resistance. But I believe after either a little bit before or after the big event on September 12th, I think Apple's going to get a big rug pull, and this may slow the market down next week. There's just a slight rug pull. It doesn't have to be like the biggest crash of all time, just like a rug pull that can bring this thing down many points. That's a possibility, and I think this is pending looking at the bearish divergence. Now, this may slow Tesla down just a little bit going into next week, but that's just something I wanted to warn you all about. For now, however, Tesla's looking strong. It's still trying to hold up, and we're going to be watching 255 as our support. If that fails us, the 20 EMA is at 254, then we have 252.5, 250, 248, and if it breaks below that, we have even lower levels like 245. For resistance, watch 255, which is currently like we're a little bit below that. That's why I'm talking about that. But 255 could be support/resistance depending on where we are. Then we have 258 above that. Then we have 260 to 261, then 262, 265, and the list goes on. What is this looking like? Like I said earlier, I think Tesla's going to push a little bit higher and try to make its way up to this chop zone up here, get close to 260, reject, and start trading sideways for a bit. And I think overall it's looking quite decent so far. Now, if this is a trap and Tesla ends up holding below 250, then it could start turning bearish and we could see it approaching 250 or the lower 250s. But for now, it's not really doing that. There's not really a true signal of Tesla breaking down. So there's a good chance it may cool off in the morning, then start to push up even higher all the way up to this 260 area, then start shopping and trading sideways from there. I think that's very probable, and I think Tesla could still try to outperform the market, and that's despite how weak some tickers are starting to look. When we look at SPY, we have a bearish cross on the PPO, and this thing is starting to look a little bit more bearish as we had the bearish divergence developing, right? This thing looks like it's going to hit 448 very, very soon. It is looking more bearish. So look for a little bounce in the morning, then more downside. I think 448 is on the table. Now, to add on to this, when it comes to Apple, for instance, this right here is trying to push up and fill the gap around that 190 area. But like I said before, the bearish divergence is eventually going to play out, in my opinion, possibly after Apple's big event or maybe like right before it. So over the next couple of trading days, there's going to be a big rug pull coming to Apple, which is going to slow the market down. And that's going to act as an anchor for Tesla. So keep that in the back of your mind. Most likely it's going to happen by next week, but just be prepared for the next week or so. It's going to happen. For now, Apple's holding up and trying to break out. So 190 plus is on the table temporarily, but things could change later on. When it comes to Nvda hits 485, rejected off of it. The overall trend is a little bit more bearish, and there is likely going to be some downside coming. Nvidia has been seeing a change in its market structure with this head and shoulders developing, and we have this imbalance down here at 466. Now, we're going to be watching for tomorrow just lots of sideways price action, I would say. We're going to be watching it retest 485 if that rejects. It's going to come down to about 476, I would say. Then try to bounce off that and just continue to trade sideways. I think it's going to see some sideways price action as it's range bound, but eventually later on over the next 2 weeks, I think Nvidia is going to slowly start downtrending and make its way back down to like this 466 level. Remember that historically September tends to be a very bearish month for the market, so I wouldn't necessarily rule that out. But later on, Nvidia could get a very nice bounce. But overall, I'm saying the trend is looking like it's going to trade sideways for the short term, and for like a little bit of the medium term for the next few weeks, we could see more downside. Same thing with the QQQ. Watch for a retest of about 380 or so, maybe a little bit lower than that before it rejects. But we do have a potential head and shoulders developing. We have a bearish cross on the PPO and a potential head and shoulders that has developed right about here, which could lead to more downside. And I think it's eventually going to come down to 375 over the next couple of trading days. I think the QQQ has more downside pending. Now, the VIX has this unfilled gap that has formed as this thing managed to push up. But the question is, will this be like a gap and go and just continue to break out, or is this going to be like a gap and a bit of a drop for it to fill the gap? Either way, it looks like the VIX is getting ready to start uptrending. So even if it comes down, it should bounce and start pushing because support happens to be around the 13 level and it already bounced off 13. If it keeps going, that's going to be another bearish signal. So we're going to be watching that very, very carefully. And then just a couple of tickers. I just want to do this pretty quick. Coinbase right now could retest this lower level at 75 and watch for it to potentially base around there. It's getting very close to its support around there, so watch that carefully as it looks more bearish. The dollar is continuing to break out on the daily and the 4-hour time frame. If it breaks above 105, this is another bearish signal. It is still looking more bullish for the overall trend. There was a slight bearish divergence on the daily, so it could cool off just a little bit before it continues higher. Meaning the market may gap up tomorrow and start cooling off once again. But like I said before, the dollar is giving us signals that the market's slowing down. So over time, the dollar may start to break out more over the next 2 weeks, and that could slow the markets. Google has a potential head and shoulders developing right over here. So watch for this thing to get a one more push for like 373. I'm sorry, 137.5. Sorry about that, guys. And then reject and start cooling off and then break below 135. Same thing with Amazon. There's a potential bearish looking structure developing. I think Amazon's going to make its way down to 135 or lower very, very soon. It's going to be attracted to this like 135 area. I think eventually it's going to get there. Then as far as Meta goes, it's testing resistance around this 300 area. We're going to be watching if this thing can try to hold. We have a possible head and shoulders developing, depending if it can break or not. And if it breaks down, like I said, there could be more downside coming. It all depends on how it reacts to 300. So if we break below 300, watch 296 and 295. We might just start outperform the market and break out. 305 is technically on the table, but it has to hold above 300 tomorrow morning. For now, it's trying to hold up, but I would be very cautious with this potential head and shoulders. So be calm, cool, and collect and do what you have to do. Anyways, guys, when it comes to Tesla, this was not exactly how I was expecting it initially, but sometimes things like this happen. Watch for it to re-enter this historical chop zone between 255 and 260. I think it's going to trade sideways once it gets there. And overall, it's still holding up decently, and we're going to see how it ends up performing after that. If it breaks and holds above 260, then 262.5 to 265 are on the table. It looks a little bit more in favor of the bulls right now, so we're going to be watching that very carefully. And then don't forget that for tomorrow, we have some big data that's going to affect the market too. So with that said, I thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully this video was very helpful. I want to make this one kind of quick, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.